Are there any outstanding planning conditions still to be discharged?
So due to the project being of such a large size, so all planning conditions for phase 1 have been completely signed off. However, for stages 2 to 5, they still need to be signed off. In terms of phase 1 though, they had to revisit the planning of the facade quite a lot due to the airport and the close proximity, and also matching the facade to the listed building, so they had to revisit it, and that actually led to them having to set up like a prefabricated area of the wall, so that customers and viewers and clients could see the prefabricated wall, and that would allow the planning permission to pass easier. But so for phases 2 to 5, the planning does still need to be adjusted and it still needs to be tweaked.
How are the building regulations being dealt with?
So essentially for this project, due to its large size, Farrells, the architect, have hired 2 teams. So they have the team that works with the client and then they have the team that works with Farrells. So essentially each time a design element is installed or changed, both of these teams meet along with the contractor and subcontractors involved, so that essentially they can talk about the process and essentially make sure that the client is getting whatever they asked for in the contract and in the design. So actually when I went onto site, an element of this was the canopy areas made out of steel. When you go into all of the lobby areas, the grouting on the steel frames wasn't correct and it wasn't what the clients wanted. So both teams from Farrells, working for the client and Farrells, essentially meted up with the subcontractor and the package manager called Joe, and they went through and they assessed it, and basically Farrells from both teams working for the client and Farrells Architects basically talked about what they wanted and essentially what was in the contract. So it's a process of constantly checking all of the design elements just to make sure that there's no changes being made unless it's necessary, and if they are being changed then there's a reason why and that the client can understand that. So essentially it's a process of just working through everything, and I think for me personally that's helped the project stay on track slightly. There obviously is reasons for it falling back ever so slightly, which I think personally is understandable due to the size of the project, but I think where they're at now, like their communication in the project has really helped it to stay on track, along with verbal communication, but also their online forum ASONX, which they can communicate through. So yeah.
In your opinion, has the work of the contractor and specialist subcontractor been interfaced?
Overall, personally, I think that it has been interfaced well, mainly just due to the size of the project and the fact that all of the companies involved are very, very professional. However, personally, what I've experienced going on site is that builders genuinely do try to test the architect's last nerve. So speaking to Megan, she said as an architect, it's just working out when a builder's being a bit cheeky and trying to get away with not doing a job properly, or to its satisfaction for the client, or whether it actually can't be done. So it's just that back and forth communication, essentially playing ball with them to see if they're just being lazy or they actually can improve the job. We've had times when in the lobby area Megan has been snagging and the architects have like sworn at her and they've shouted at her, but I think what I've learned about going on site and being with the architect is that you just need to keep a cool, keep the goal in mind, which is pleasing the client and just dealing with the situation to, at the end of the day, still have a good relationship with all the builders, because you don't want to break that relationship, but also you do need to get the job done and make sure that they're doing everything to their ability. So it's just, I think, playing ball with them, and I think actually that's the part of architecture that probably we don't learn about enough, is that approach of being able to work with all of these different teams well and kind of playing ball with them and having to deal with them swear at you and be a bit cheeky. But yeah, it was very interesting.
In your opinion, is the architectural vision as represented in the architect's drawing being made manifest through the work of the builders on site?
I think, genuinely speaking, the builders are very hard-working and they do genuinely see what the vision is. For me, Farrells have created really nice visuals using BIM and Revit, which are 2 technology-based programs to essentially create visuals. So I think really having those visuals and being able to give them to the builders, the clients, everyone involved, even like the media team whenever they had media nights, it's really helped to get the vision across to everyone. There are definitely details where the builders have not wanted to do it, or they've tried to test the architects if they don't have to do it, such as like we went on site and the tiles needed to match the top of the door and they didn't, and the architects wanted that, and builders essentially thought that it wasn't needed, but obviously as architects we have a vision and we want to communicate something with the client and the users, so that just needs to be done.
How did they change the tiles?
Yeah, so in the end actually the builders recommended it and the architects kind of worked with them, and they actually didn't have the tiles on top of the door, they actually did change it, simply because the builders actually worked out that it was cheaper it was inexpensive to not do that because of the tile size. They would essentially have to order in hundreds more just to get it 20 centimetres down. So that is also interesting, seeing that actually the architects don't always know and think for everything, even on such a big project like ours. Sometimes they do need the builders who have years of experience in this like craft. They know when something needs to be done differently. So it is like, you know, interesting to see actually that the architects don't always know everything, which isn't their fault, but you know, they can work for it with the builders and the best result is achieved. But I do think genuinely overall, like, the vision has been received and communicated well, definitely.
What do you think about the design of the building? Would you do any changes?
So I think overall, because it's a master plan, in my opinion, looking at other students' site diaries that potentially have smaller, more intimate designs, I do think that the architectural vision, as you will, has been a bit lost. I think your ability to be creative is limited when it gets to a master plan of this size and it's a commercial space. The client's ABP wanted an inexpensive project, so essentially budget was their main drive. They wanted it to be cheap, so I do think you get to a certain point where the architectural creativity is lost. However, Farrells have created like this park space in between the buildings, and for me, although I haven't seen it actually on site yet, but I've seen the technology graphics and the renders of it, and for me that's like the bit that stands out, and the fact that it's a waterfront building. But when I have gone on site and I've walked into the lobby areas, they have been so nice, and especially on the different pages working throughout the contractors program, you've been able to like see the changes, and it's been really nice to go in and actually see. And like, it's on the waterfront, which is so nice. Like, for me personally, I would love to work on the waterfront. So you know, I do think creatively and architecturally the design is there, but it has been limited, and there's only so much you can do when it's such a large commercial space. In terms of changing, I think for me there's 2 listed buildings on site, and I don't think the architects have maybe fully thought about matching the materials of the new builds to the listed buildings. I think the colours and the materiality could have been thought of better. And I do think the listed buildings have kind of just been pushed to one side because they're a bit of a hassle to deal with. So I think for me personally, that's something that I would have thought of much earlier, because when I go on site, I think they just look a bit kind of lost and forgotten about on site. So I do think that's something that they could think of. But I think overall, like, they've done well with the budget and what the clients wanted, because at the end of the day, it's a client that you're trying to please and what they want, and there's only so many architectural glitches or magical elements that you can add before, you know, it goes way over budget and it's unrealistic. But yeah.
Is the project on course to be completed within the contract period? If not, why?
So whenever we've spoken to Megan, which has been the architect that we've had communication with, she has said that it's currently 2 weeks behind schedule. So I personally, I don't know if this is represented on every site, but I personally think that's good. Considering every time I go, like, there's so much going on, it's such a large project that I personally think 2 weeks is very good. And that has mainly come just down to snagging. So now Megan's going through and she's snagging all of the buildings and the lobby areas and the office areas. There's small changes that she's picking up on, and actually we've even picked up on when we've gone around for site with her. So we've pointed out stuff. So like, I went to site and I noticed that in the lift they hadn't added in a filler for a gap, so I pointed that out to Megan, and that was now something that she brought up with the builder, which obviously the builders were probably annoyed that we were there and we were actually pointing out like elements that were wrong, but Megan appreciated it. So it's that element now, it's all the small things actually in such a big project that is delaying it, because all of the big stuff is done great, all the prefabricated walls or the concrete, everything, it's being done on time, or if not before time, but it's just the snagging and the small bits which is taking it a bit back. But I think once they do one and they go through it, it's going to speed up, but it's just this first initial process of doing snagging that's slowing them down on all the tiny changes, even like carpet being frayed on the corners, or a tile is slightly out of line and it's messing the schedule up slightly. But I personally think 2 weeks isn't long at all to be behind schedule for such a huge project. Definitely.
What have you learned by following the site diary project on site?
So I think for me the main thing that I've learned is just about the relationship between the architects and the builders, the subcontractors, the managers, everyone on site, like the relationship and what actually happens on site. And I think we all kind of have an idea of what we think an architect is, about doing the design process, the concept kind of side of things, but actually going on site and seeing everything that they do is really interesting. Like for me, I spoke to one of my tutors and she was saying how she hadn't been on a site until she graduated architecture, so it's like a big opportunity for us actually to go on site and see the relationships. And also I think for me, it's just like enabled me to kind of see the whole idea of what an architect is and the back and forth between the builders. So yeah, I think like that side has been really interesting, and actually I don't think it's something that a lot of people get to do. So going on site, and also it's just made me like excited, and every time I go, seeing all the changes. So yeah, I think it's been really exciting.
Well, how do you think that informed your possible career direction in architecture?
So I think for me, like in my career direction, like it's made me so much more excited to be an architect. Like obviously I wanted to be an architect, that's why I'm here, but it's made me so much more excited because I'm a people person. I like to talk to people, so that's an element of the career that you don't really get to speak about, and it's not just clients that you have to kind of form a relationship with, it's everyone. So for me that's been like an element that I found really exciting. But I think for me after this, I see myself enjoying more residential architecture in terms of commercial, because I think for me, like I've seen the commercial architecture on this site diary kind of build specifically, and it's been a bit impersonal. So I think definitely I would like to go on to site at some point in my degree and like see what it's like on a residential build, or even look through like my friends' site diaries who've done like a residential project and see like how kind of differently it's been for them, because I think for me commercial has been just like a bit impersonal, but it's made me excited because, you know, I can talk to people, which I love doing. But yeah, overall I am like super thankful to Megan and Connor from Farrells for allowing us to use their site and go on site, and Megan has been so helpful in giving us loads of answers, and she's constantly been emailing us whenever we need anything. And also thank you to the technical study tutors, because they've allowed us to have this module where we can go on site, and although it has been tough having to find a site and get everything sorted and organised, like I do think it's been really beneficial. And speaking even to Farrells architects, they said that they never had this opportunity in part one, so I do genuinely think like we're really lucky to be able to go on site. And also I hope that I've made connections to get a potential internship with either Farrells or one of the contractors, just so that I can then kind of further my knowledge on site. So I am really thankful actually that I got to do this module, and whenever I speak about it to like anyone, they seem really excited about it, and also so do I. And I can't wait to see everyone's site diaries and see kind of how we've differently interpreted it, and see all the differences between all of the projects. Yeah, thank you.